Fury or Wilder, points or stoppage, Ben Davison or Sugar Hill Stewart? There are so many questions around this heavyweight rematch. This is After the Bell, Mirror Fighting's boxing show in association with Betfair.
Hey, it's the WBA heavyweight champion of the world.
Float like a butterfly and sting like a bee.
The Mirror brings you After the Bell in association with Betfair.
Welcome to After the Bell's preview of the heavyweight rematch between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. 14 months since they fought to a controversial draw in Los Angeles. They will do it again, this time in Las Vegas. I'm joined, of course, by Declan and by George. Let's start by looking back. December 2018, that first fight. Was it, George, Tyson Fury's best chance to beat Deontay Wilder because Deontay Wilder underestimated Tyson Fury? Or was it Deontay Wilder's best chance because Tyson Fury was still on his way back from that long period out?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to tell. I mean, everyone thought it was too soon for Fury. Wilder was getting him at the right time before he'd sort of got back to his boxing. He was so heavy when he came back out of almost like retirement. But he shocked a lot of people that night, and he stuck to his game plan, and in many ways was unlucky not to get the win. I think, though, also, which lots of people were sort of overlooking, is that he definitely got in Deontay Wilder's head at that point. And Wilder seemed, he always does. He's a bit crazy at times, but something was really bothering him. I don't know whether it was problems in his personal life or contractually and the business side of things. But he came in real light for that fight. He didn't seem himself. We've seen in fights before and definitely fights since where he struggles to pull the trigger sometimes. He lets rounds slip by without letting his hands go. And I think he just thinks that once he lands one, he's only got to land one and that's enough. But Fury showed that he got up off the floor and he didn't get the points win that night. But, he was really unlucky. So I'd imagine now we're going to get a totally different fight. Totally different performances from both guys. I mean, I've heard Fury say in the build-up this week that he's going to take him out. He's sitting on his shots, but he also says he says an awful lot of things. So I would imagine him telling the truth, or if he has told the truth, not sure whether he knows it or not. Wilder definitely has to have more rocket fuel in him that night and try and put it on Fury. Don't let him nick rounds. He's going to have to land some big shots and know that landing that big shot might not close the show. He might need to get up and get the job done, so he can't waste no time.
I think I'm right in saying, Declan, you did actually put money on the draw.
I did, yeah.
Last time.
I just had a feeling about it. I thought
you must be so rich.
Yeah. But I thought it was that fight where I thought Fury was going to win. I thought Fury was going to dominate the rounds and win the rounds, but wouldn't get a decision, which is basically what happened. I disagreed with it, even though it paid well. But it was just one of those ones where it just looked like a draw waiting to happen. I don't think the rematch does. To be fair, I can't see that being another draw. But yeah. I think I agree with you, George, that I think it's a totally different kettle of fish. And from a fan's point of view, I'm never that big on rematches because there's something about the intrigue and just trying to picture how it's all going to play out is gone for the second one. But there's a few exceptions.
I'm not big on rematches.
You're not big
anyway.
on rematches. But that one, for instance, where there's so many question marks, this one is another one. There's so many question marks that this is even more sort of mouth-watering than the first one. So many questions and, like you say, water under the bridge 14 months on. It's such a good fight, but it's still so hard to pick. I don't know, what is the price on the draw? Do we know? Is it 28-1 again?
I can tell you it's 22-1.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's probably worth a $5 again, why not?
But do you think that was Fury's best chance?
Again, it's so hard to say because I know I spent time in Tuscaloosa with Deontay Wilder and the whole camp in the build-up to that fight. And not a single person in that camp. And there's boxing people, Mark Breland, JD's, a load of coaches, Deontay Wilder. No one. The only person who really did rate Fury as highly as he maybe should was Malik Scott. The rest of them thought he was basically a clown and a performer and that he wasn't any good. He certainly couldn't punch. He's going to turn up, wiggle around for however many rounds and eventually get chinned. That was genuinely what they thought. Now they know that's not the case. They know that what they have to prepare for. They know how good he is. They know what he's not so good at. So I think there's going to be a totally different performance, and it will raise a level for Wilder. So was that his best chance? I'm not sure. I think actually he's going to be better. He's going to be a couple of gears better, and that doesn't bode well for Tyson Fury, because I think if you rewatch the first fight, Wilder was actually poor, and you don't know whether that was because he was maybe undercooked with his weight and whatever, or whether it was Tyson Fury's tactics made him miss so much, made him sort of started to break his heart a little bit until the 12th round. So, yeah, was it his best chance? I'm not sure. I think he's got a better chance this time.
Were you surprised, George? You mentioned Fury getting into Wilder's head. He did seem a bit, as you say, he's always loud, but he always talks about this change in fight week, but he did seem a bit on edge. It wouldn't be the first time Fury's done it, but were you surprised that he was able to do that to someone so experienced?
Yeah, no, I think I wasn't surprised at all, because it's what Fury does so well. I mean, and what it's just he's so hard to take seriously. I think that's what he did. That's what Klitschko felt, struggled with. Is that he definitely didn't prepare for Tyson Fury properly. And then once you're in there and the fight starts, it's really hard to switch on. If you haven't had that mindset your entire camp. If you're part of Wilder's team, you want to hope that Wilder is switched on now and isn't just falling for the same thing that he did the first time, which everyone will do. And if you look at the sort of the run up to the fight since the first fight, Fury's had 2 fights back where at lower level opposition and a wrestling match, and has really been dining out on the draw. His profile has risen, his popularity's definitely skyrocketed. He still talks about being the lineal champion, so he feels like a world champion, and he's not at the moment. So as Wilder then how's he dealing with that? Is he frustrated by that, or is he I'm disappointed with that first fight, I want to do better? That would be the way that I would try and be pushing him, because he's got the power. That power's not going to leave him. He's just got to get the connection, But he's been in two fights where he absolutely blitzed Dominic Brazil, and then down on the cards against Ortiz. But in that round, he lets his hands go, and then 4 or 5 right hands later, it's the best right hand I saw all year, and the fight's over. So he can't sit and wait for that perfect shot, especially against someone like Fury, who's just so big, so nimble. He puts nothing on his shots. He's not trying to knock you out. He can, as a fighter, I can imagine how so many guys are frustrated boxing him, because he probably doesn't look like or feel like in the ring that he's doing anything that particularly that clever. But he is. He is.
Whether or not he got in his head in the first fight, which he probably did a bit, I don't think you can do it twice. And I think Fury's realised that, because I don't know if you've seen the press conference and stuff. It was so tame. Fury's just not even bothering with that. The only thing that he's peddling is this idea of, well, I'm going to try and knock you out. And I actually believe him. I think that's what he's thinking, and that was the reason behind the change of trainer. But in terms of trying to wind him up and get in his head and all that sort of stuff, which he did in the first fight, I think he's realised there's no point now. It's not something he can do, because Wilder knows what's coming. So it's not, Wilder would have gone in there thinking, well, is this guy actually, he said all this stuff, what's he actually going to do when I'm in there? He knows what's going to come. So Fury hasn't bothered with that. I don't think it's helped with the promotion of the fight, to be honest, but I think that it stands for itself, luckily, and I don't think that psychological element is a factor in this fight.
Okay. Next up, we'll take a look back at what both men have been doing since they first met. Since Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder fought to a draw in 2018, they've both recorded 2 victories. Wilder's probably better than Fury's. But what I want to start with in this section is Fury's change of trainer, which I'm not really buying into, George, so perhaps you can maybe help explain. He's left Ben Davison, who played such a huge role, not only in Tyson Fury's corner in the ring, but also outside the ring, bringing him back from his terrible state, losing the weight, etc. So he's left him to join up with Sugar Hill Stewart, nephew of Emmanuel. In Fury's words, because he wants a knockout, can you change a trainer with a couple of months to go before the biggest fight of your life, simply because you want to win in a different way? Or can it work?
I don't know. I don't know. I suppose we will find out if Fury's telling the truth, and it happens for him on fight night. But I was a bit shocked that he'd left Ben Davison. I know Ben Davison's a young trainer who's had he ain't got an awful lot of experience to fall back on, but he's served well. But it seems like the fighters he works with do flutter back and forth. If I'm right, Billy Joe Saunders might be back with Dominic Ingle. So maybe just the dynamic or the atmosphere in the gym was not the same when it was, because Fury and Saunders are good pals, and when that wasn't there, it didn't quite feel right, and he wanted to move on. It might be a business reason why it hasn't, why their relationship hasn't lasted, or maybe it is literally just for this one fight, and Fury thinks that there's something that he can't get from Ben Davison that he needs for this fight. So I think it's difficult. It's very difficult changing trainer just before any fight, but definitely before such a big fight. The boxer trainer relationship is pretty intimate at time, and there's a lot of trust that's needed, because when the fight starts and you're sitting down at the end of each round and you need clear, concise information to then take out to the next round, you don't want to be second guessing the guy who's giving you that information, or just thinking, I'm going to do what I want, because then you're missing out on something that is an advantage. So it's a tough one, a real tough one. I suppose we just have to see whether it was the right decision or not.
We'll talk later about how we actually see the fight playing out, Declan. But since, as I mentioned, they both had 2 wins, Tyson Fury stopped Tom Swartz easily enough, but then had a real struggle against Otto Wallin with the cut, whereas Wilder, Dominic Brazil, and then Luis Ortiz both put away, contrasting styles, but in the end, very comfortably. If this was the first fight, and you were looking back at those 2 fights, you would fancy Wilder's definitely had the better preparation.
Yeah, kind of. But then at the same time, Tyson Fury had Sefer Seferi and Francesco Pianetta in the build-up to the first fight. So it wasn't as if he was firing on all cylinders. He was just coming back. So, yeah, Tom Schwartz was easily enough dealt with, clearly not in his league. He had one of those nights against Otto Wallin. The cut didn't help, but, he was flat. He was a southpaw, all this sort of stuff. There was something a bit strange about that fight week. Like, he didn't book any sort of after party or anything. It was an early flight back. It was something that I'm not sure if he was totally engaged in that fight. It was certainly a deal. It was part of this deal with Top Rank and ESPN where they're just trying to build him more in time for the rematch with Deontay Wilder. So I think that was a reflection. The performance reflected that. To get the best out of him, clearly he needs to be switched on, that little bit of fear, which is what's going to happen. So I wouldn't read too much into either of those fights. Same way that the Wilder fights were impressive, the Wilder wins were impressive, but Dominic Brazil totally made for him in the way that he, literally walked towards him for the big knockout shot. Fury's not going to do that. And then Ortiz, like you say, probably won every round before the knockout. That's not to take anything away from Wilder, because that's really what matters, but it's not like he was masterful in that fight. He was getting outboxed and he got the shot, which could happen in this fight. So, when you look at the 2, obviously they've had contrasting years. Fury's also had a real tough knock over in Saudi Arabia and WWE. I don't know how he got on in the end, but I guess he's still undefeated. But, I don't think it matters. I think a lot of what Fury does is, natural. So whether he needs momentum or whatever, I'm interested to see what sort of shape he comes in. He says he's going to be heavier. I don't know if that's something else to do with Ben Davison, who would have, I guess, wanted him light-ish again. I guess he'd probably be another stone, maybe 2 stone heavier, because if he is looking for a knockout, that's what he's going to need. Then does that make him vulnerable to a big puncher like Wilder? Perhaps, but I wouldn't read too much into last year. I think it's a clean slate for both of them.
And just on that cut, George, would you be confident enough? It's been we're on 4 or 5 months now. Would you be confident enough that cut will have healed and that Fury won't have it on his mind?
Yeah, no. I think, cuts do heal. They do heal. You'll have a slight bit of scar tissue there, which is a little bit more vulnerable than normal skin. But if it's been managed well and treated well, then that's not a problem at all. That would have healed within 4-6 weeks maximum. You assume he's done a whole camp now of sparring. He would have the full face head guard on. But even though you're taking them shots, you do get the rubbing effect, which if the skin's really weak, it's going to go. I was saying earlier off camera that some guys they just keep getting cut, but it's usually because of their bone structure and because they keep getting hit as well. So if Fury don't get hit, then you definitely won't have to worry about the cut. But I think, I definitely wouldn't be hedging my bets around a cut. I might live to regret them words, but I think the cut definitely doesn't need to be factoring in Fury worrying about his fight.
Okay. And in the final part, we will take a look at the fight itself and make our predictions for the rematch. So, Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, it's finally here, the rematch. Declan, you seem confident that Tyson Fury is, perhaps for once, telling the truth, that he is going to come in heavier, that he has changed trainer for a purpose, that he is going to go for the knockout. And he says, I have to change because I didn't win the first time, so therefore my tactics didn't win. But I think a lot of people thought he did win, and all he had to do was avoid the knockdown in the last round. So why do you feel like he will change tactics?
Well, his argument is exactly that. He's like, I won the first fight, still didn't get the decision, so what's the point of going out there and doing exactly the same thing again and hoping for a different outcome? What I will say about Fury, he obviously says a lot of mad stuff and definitely tells lies to get people going, and I could name 10, 15 times he's told us as the press total lies, probably for a laugh, and you sort of have to go with it. But sometimes he really tells the truth, or at least he seems to really believe what he's saying. I remember he said that the Vladimir Klitschko fight would be his easiest fight ever, and we were all like, yeah, good one, mate. It was. He said Derek Chisora wouldn't lay a glove on him in the rematch. Looking back on it now, makes sort of sense, but at the time it was seen as, again, a total, just a lie to try and sell a fight or whatever. This time he's saying, I need a knockout. That's why I've got a new trainer. That's why I'm sitting on my shots a lot more. That's why I'm going to be heavy. And I do believe him. Whether that's the right tactic or not remains to be seen. But he says that he's backing himself. I wonder whether actually when he gets in there, even if that is the game plan, he might revert to type under that sort of pressure from Wilder, who obviously punches really hard. And Fury's been doing that his whole life, moving around and being elusive and, like you say, not putting that much behind his shots. Maybe that's what he'll do. He'll retreat into that. But I think the game plan, I think he is really going to try and knock Wilder out, but it could just be one big game plan. But something tells me he's telling the truth there, and then that sort of should really shape how you see the fight, because if he does that, in theory, it means he's far more vulnerable to someone like Wilder. He said in an interview that I watched the other day that he's been hit more in sparring in this camp than he has been in the last 10 years or whatever, which is not a good sign when you've got someone like Wilder who's going to be catching you. So is he having us all over again? Is he just going to try and outbox him?
I think being heavy, right, is not a good thing for Tyson Fury. Never a good thing for any fighter, because if you're a puncher and you think being heavier will allow you to punch harder, there's so many factors in punching hard, and there's so many reasons why being that lighter, it makes you hit harder. And I learned this through watching someone like David Haye, who's such an explosive fighter, that when he was close to 17 stone, he seemed to lose that nanosecond or whatever it is that allowed him to generate that bit more punch power that made him that much more dangerous. If he comes in heavy, Fury, it's not going to really help with his punch absorption, so give him a better chin, because the percentages you're working with at that size won't play a factor, but it is going to make him that much more easier to hit. If he's telling the truth and saying he's been hit more than ever in sparring for this camp, I guarantee it's because he's heavier, because it's hard to be elusive and agile on your feet when you've got more weight to shift around. There's an optimum weight for everyone. Heavyweights, and especially giants like Fury, it's hard to pinpoint what it will be, but he will know from being in camp and feeling and thinking and being able to make the adjustments, in the sparring, in the camp, to get the very best out of himself. But as you say, I think guys revert to type, and whenever he's been fighting at the highest level, it's to frustrate the guy, hit and not get hit. But when I say hit, it's not to put these guys away, it's to score points, to win rounds. I'm sure it may be in his head he's thinking, if I'm heavier, I'm naturally going to be punching a bit harder. I'll still be nice and nimble, but if the opportunity arises and I do land a couple of shots on Wilder, I'm going to have more of an effect, and then I can go in and try and finish the guy. But the problem with that is that he's going to be so much easier to hit. He's not going to be able to be as nimble, and therefore he's not going to create the openings with his movement, with his upper body movement. Even letting your hands go is harder when you got, and you're just carrying around a bigger frame. You get more tired quickly. It's been a while since he's done a camp for a fight, so that might be why. He just might be one of them guys who it's not, he takes his eye off the ball and he balloons up in weight, and he ain't had enough time to get back in shape, or the weight just hasn't come off him quickly this time. Or maybe he's telling the truth, So all I know is, as a fighter, you say whatever you think you've got to say to not give away any weaknesses.
But
to your
there must
opponent.
have been time. I remember covering you over the years, and you would say you would go into a press conference and go, "This is what the message I want to get across today, because I know my opponent's going to hear it." Like for instance, Martin Murray, "I'm too big for you, mate. I'm too big for you." Do you think Tyson Fury's thinking that with Deontay Wilder and gone, my message in this whole build-up is I'm going to knock you out, in the hope that it knocks Wilder off and it makes him start questioning himself?
Maybe, but usually your message has to correlate with what's actually going on. Do you know what I mean? So, like, I'm too big for you, Martin Murray, because I am much bigger than you, and I've got to cut a load of weight. So everyone for me was, he's dead at the weight. He's got so much weight to cut. He's going to be weak. So, no, actually, I'm in full control of my weight, and I know I've got a lot to cut, but that's going to be to my benefit.
Yeah.
Even though we didn't really try and drum the message home, it was the same with Eubank, because career middleweight moving up, So now he's got a set of attributes that are suiting him, where he's as I say, lighter, more agile, can still generate an awful lot of force and a lot of punch power. Martin Murray came out for the first few rounds light on his toes, trying to shift and move and be an elusive target. Hit me with body shots because he thought I was tight at the weight. Then you have to impose your size. But you could be carrying an injury. You never tell anyone in the build-up, "Oh yeah, I done no running for this camp because my knees are sore." My shoulder didn't work. But the message you're constantly putting out is that
It's perfect. I remember writing that story.
I am good, man. I'm good. Because ultimately, you don't want to anchor a negative to yourself, to your whole camp, to your team, So I can't say to Shane McGuigan, who's my coach, I can't turn around to him and say, "Shoulder don't work," because he's going to be that doubting me, He might be thinking, "Shoulder don't work," but he don't want to say to me, "Oh, your shoulder's not working." I go, "Right, well, we're still fighting." He goes, "Okay," and then I'm thinking, "Well, he don't believe in me.
Yeah.
He don't think I'm going to do well in this fight." So you all sort of just believe the best you can believe, We're probably way off subject here for Fury Wilder, but that is the build up. That's the build up for camp, and new team. He'll want to impress his new coach, So he's not going to be there making excuses. Like, no new coach wants to be dragging their fighter into the gym and making them work. They want to prove their worth. So say Fury doesn't like running, but this coach wants him to run. He probably suggested it a couple of times. If he realises Fury ain't running, he might try and light a rocket on his backside. If that don't work, then he'll probably, all right, we'll think of something else. We'll forget about the running. Because, you just want everyone to be happy, in a positive frame of mind, and up for whatever the big fight is that's, there in front of you on the horizon.
On the subject of that game plan of trying to knock him out and really want to generate power and single shot power, he's obviously rekindled that Kronk thing that he had. It was only fleeting. He was only there a couple of months, as far as I know. He's also got Andy Lee in his corner, another Kronk fighter, someone who, one punch, very underrated one punch man. So I think it does tie into the narrative that he's saying. He got rid of someone who was trying to get him to win on points, and he's just gone, right, who do I know could get me punching harder in 8 weeks or whatever it's been, and he's actually running with it. So you can sort of believe him from that point of view.
I can believe that he believes it. But can't you
Does
just
it work?
You can't just knock on someone's door and say, "Make me punch harder."
Yeah, but do you know what? He's always had this reputation as a non-puncher's probably a bit strong, but for his size, he doesn't punch hard enough. But he's had like 21 knockouts in his 29 wins or whatever it is. He's 6'9" and he weighs 18, 19 stone. He's gonna punch you hard. But the fact is, he doesn't plant his feet like Joshua does or like Wilder does. He's always on the move, so you're not putting stuff behind his shots. He's trying to frustrate you. He knows he can win the fight another weight. But if he did do the other thing, start setting his feet more, start, rotating more, really turning the hand over, he's going to knock people out. He is. And I think that's what he genuinely thinks. I think he sees Wilder being there for the taking for a big shot, and he's going to try and take it. And if he does, I think this is Hagler Hearns. This is proper shootout. So I'm sort of hoping that he's telling the truth.
Yeah. But is Wilder there for the taking? Because he hasn't been so far.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think when Wilder's up for it as well, and he's not too flat, he's a good fighter. He's a good boxer. I think in the first Ortiz fight where he got buzzed and he had to recover from that, I think he showed a lot of character in that fight, but also a lot of ability to, when the tide's going against you, to just reset, get back to your boxing, nullify what the guy's doing when he's swarming you, and then put your shots together and finish it. So I think he's an underrated fighter because he's so big and so gangly at times and looks a little bit messy and clumsy. People don't really appreciate his boxing ability, but you got to have an awful lot of technique to be able to punch that hard. It's not just he might disagree, but it's not just a God-given talent. It's God's got nothing to do with it. It's your technique and obviously your muscles and a few other factors. But he's a well-schooled, experienced fighter who's been at the top level now for an awful long time. There ain't many fighters out there with more world title defences than Deontay Wilder. So I think one thing that was missing from his, definitely from his last performance is just let your hands go. You just got to let your hands go. Run the risk of missing a few times because you've got to punch so long and so far that you might not always find a home for them targets, especially you guys that are wary of your power. Maybe he's listening to people who are saying, technically, you ain't got it. You're just a big puncher. So he wants to make every shot count, every shot work. But he's definitely gonna have to let his hands go. Maybe run the risk of missing a lot against Fury.
Again.
But but if you're gonna throw 5 punches around and miss 5, or you're gonna throw 50 punches around and land 1, that one shot you land might be enough for you, even just to slow the guy down or to buzz him momentarily, where then you jump in and finish.
One other factor I think with the fight that's sort of been overlooked a little bit is that Wilder did catch him twice. Obviously the second one real heavy in the 12th round. And I wonder, you were a big puncher. When you hit someone really hard and you don't put them away, or you keep doing it and you think, this guy, how tough is this guy? Why is he not reacting like everyone else does? Does that do something to you mentally? Like Deontay Wilder's hit him with his best shot twice and he still got up and he managed to put his hands behind his back a minute later, all that business. Going into the fight, I wonder if that's in the back of his head, what do I actually have to do to this guy to keep him down? How does that affect you?
Well, when you do knock someone down at different stages of the fight, it can look different. The knockdown can look different. Usually when someone's knocked down early, it could be a real heavy knockdown. When we saw Keller last week, who was out and his neck bounced off the rope, but because it's early on in the first third of the fight, guys they've still got the energy to get up and sort of maybe survive the round and get their bearings back. Near the end of the fight, they can go down and look more hurt than what they actually are, but actually the punch didn't really have the huge effect. It's just that the body's tired, it's more relaxed. And I think in that 12th round when Fury goes down, it's a bit silly, but it's almost he thinks he's knocked out. At that point you think, blown it, because he goes down and it's not wrestling. You don't just come back to life. Sometimes guys are unconscious and they hit the floor and it does wake them up. But he sort of goes down, he closes his eyes and he goes, well, I'm still here. Yeah. I'm all right, and gets up. So he's probably more hurt earlier on in the fight than in that 12th round. Maybe he's just a fantastic performer, and that's what was the most fascinating thing. From that fight was him coming back from the depth in the 12th round, getting up, and that's what's carried his value. So I don't think as bad as it looked. I genuinely don't think it was such a bad knockdown as what Fury led us to believe, intentionally or not. Because in the 12th round, guys who usually get put over like that just wouldn't get up. So and he's been over a few times in his career, Fury, against much lesser punches as well. So, don't know.
Maybe that plays into his thinking as well. He took his best shots, so if he can take his best
That's
shots,
exactly it.
why not go for it?
Yeah, I think that's what he's thinking. He's like, right, he's nailed me a few times there, but I was still okay. I'll still get up, but I haven't hit him with my best shots. Although he did catch him a couple of times. I think Wilder's chin's underrated as well, actually. But yeah, I just wonder whether Wilder's that will play a little, that will just be a little seed in his head. Probably not, because like you say, he's wired a bit differently and he's a bit mad. He genuinely thinks he's, anointed by God. And I wonder whether that mentality, which has obviously driven him to this point, he was in the Olympics 18 months after he walked in the gym. He's clearly so mentally strong that I wonder whether anything from that first fight is really going to affect him. He knows it's still going to be hard to land on Fury because of his size and stuff, but he's still going to back himself to do it. The Ortiz fight will tell him that as well. I don't need to get desperate, actually. I'll be fine here because if I lose a few rounds, I'm still capable of knocking out any man in the world. So, yeah, I think, I know we're going to go into predictions soon, but it's just mad these days to not back Wilder to knock his opponent out.
Yeah. Does Wilder approach it differently this time?
Yeah. I'd come in heavier. Not too heavy, but more along the lines of what he's been weighing the last couple of fights, which is heavier than his first fight with Fury. You don't need to ever be desperate, as you say, Dec, but let your hands go more and don't be worried about missing. You'll be able to tell straight away what Fury's style is. If he's going to sit on these shots, then obviously it's more risk of what's coming back. But if he's fighting off the back foot and trying to pick shots, then you can afford to miss and get countered because they're not going to be huge shots coming back that ain't going to hurt you. So the more chance you got of landing, the better chance he's got of winning. I can't see him picking up a points win. I can't really see the fight going 12 rounds. Could go either way, but I'd favour with Wilder champion. I think he's gonna win this fight.
Okay. Let's just take a quick look at the odds. So Wilder, Fury's a favourite, 5-6 with Betfair. Wilder 11-10, as we said. The draw 22-1. If we believe Tyson Fury and he's going to go for the knockout and he'll get the knockout, that's 4-1. If we believe he'll do it in the second round, which he has mentioned, 60-1.
I don't really see that.
Okay. Fury to be knocked down and win, 4-1, which he almost, of course, did last time. Wilder by knockout is 5-4. So, George, you've already said you reckon Wilder by stoppage.
Yeah, Wilder stoppage. But now these great odds. I want to know what's Wilder down and then up and stoppage. That
11-2.
11-2.
Oh yeah, sorry,
To knock out and
11-2.
win.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
who knows? Because if Fury is saying what he's saying and he catches Wilder early, he might put him over, might get up, and it might be, I suppose, similar to his fight with Ortiz the first time. But I think I'm gonna go safe with more safe than that with a Wilder TK at 5-4.
Declan?
Well, it's one of them where, you should never change your pick. What you think when the fight's made, you should never really change your pick. And I was massive particularly after the first one. I thought, well, Fury's just going to win. He's only going to win proof in the first fight. He's going to do the same and get the decision. But because of the trainer thing and, what he's talking about, going for the knockout and stuff, I just can't. And what's, Wilder's to win. I just can't pick against Wilder inside the distance. I just can't do it because he has caught. It's not like Fury's so elusive that Wilder can't catch him, because he did twice in the first fight. And literally, you're talking half a second away from getting stopped, and another ref would have actually stopped him in that last round. So I just think that's the bet. And at 5-4, Wilder to win by KO in any fight at better than evens is mad price. So for me, that's the one that stands out. And yeah, if you want to boost that a little bit, 11-2 to have to get knocked down. We don't know what he's going to be like when he gets knocked down, though, because you're right. The Ortiz one was, he was getting pummeled. It was right at the end of the round. He had a lot of time to recover because they checked him afterwards because of the New York Commission rules and stuff like that. So if Fury does catch him, can he really come back from it? And how does Fury finish a fight like that? We don't see him jumping on someone and stopping them necessarily. Someone of that caliber. For me, that's the one. That Wilder inside the distance. But what about you? You can't sit on the fence these days, even as a host.
I think you're right. There are too many variables around Fury. I don't. And yes, I would love to see him just go out and do what he did last time, because he, as I say, he came so close to winning and actually should still have won.
Yeah.
I had him winning. I didn't even think. Well, it was close, obviously, but I didn't really have any doubt if you take away the idea of it being in America and everything else, I thought he should have won it, even getting knocked down. But if we go back to the mental side of it, I think again you're right. There's no way Wilder's going to be affected. I just think he's the safer option at this point. He's coming in just, I think, in a better frame of mind.
I've just learned over the years to never really doubt what Fury says about boxing, because when he doesn't mean it, boxing wise, he rarely says it. You know, the Klitschko rematch, when it didn't happen and stuff, he wasn't saying certain things. He obviously knew. The first fight he knew, the Chisora fight he knew. It's hard to pick against him, but that power is ridiculous. So it's a hard one. One little one, I know the cut could be okay, but if that opens up early, Wilder's talked about using it as a target, and if he is getting caught a lot, and if he's getting up close to him, and Fury's going to tie him up a lot, and he's putting the head in or whatever, and that cut opens up early, it could go to, this could be before it goes to the cards, we'll get a technical draw, which I believe pays out at 22-1 or whatever it is. Again, a little safe bet might be worth it.
Absolutely. Well, even though we have all gone for Wilder, do stick with all the build-up to the fight this weekend, and of course join us next week where we'll look back at the heavyweight rematch.